The San Bernardino massacre has brought back the central question: how do we prevent this? And has this country become too politically correct? Should certain demographics and racial profiling be accepted in America? Remember, 28-year-old Syed Farook and his Saudi Arabian raised wife, both were parents. They just had a new kid, 6-month-old baby. They recently came back from Saudi Arabia. Farook was a U.S. citizen. In fact, he worked in a public health environment. He was an inspector. What would have made them stand out? Joining me now, Erick Erickson, Fox News contributor and RedState.com editor, along with Bo Dietl, former New York Police Department detective and Fox News contributor, and Steve Rogers is back with us as well. Erick, how, in hindsight, how could we have stopped this guy? How could society, how could law enforcement have stopped this from happening?
Well, there's a little bit of tragic irony from the politically correct culture out there, as there are now several news reports out that the next-door neighbor saw suspicious activity, but didn't want to report it and be accused of racial profiling, so stayed silent.
So here's the thing, Bo. If she would have reported it, they knock on the door, hey, someone sees something, hears something. I don't know how much room that gives you legally to go into the house and inspect it, but are we at a point in the society where you can couple that with the fact that they're Muslim and get some, and do you think we should go from there and say, hey, let's be honest, a wave of attacks around the world, particularly in the West, this should give us the right to go further? You would start an investigation. And you know, it stems from the bottom line. They refuse to say what it is. When the attack in Colorado occurred by that psychopath Christian that attacked that abortion clinic, he was a Christian terrorist. This was a Muslim terrorist. People don't want to say it, come out of their mouth. Right, but how do you, in other words, let's say, okay, the political correctness fades away. Right. I mean, the majority of Americans now say homegrown terrorism is their greatest fear. So how do we prevent it? We need people to be ready to open up about what they're seeing. If you see something, you report it. We need to communicate with each other, and we have to band together against this, because this could be a person sitting at his computer, and all of a sudden he's becoming radicalized, and the next thing is he's going to go out and shoot a place up. That is going to be impossible to figure that out if he's not communicating with people with ISIS or whatever. And how do you figure out what's in a person's mind?
And Charles, there's an added ingredient to what Bo's saying. We've got to go back to the days of community policing. Cops need to be out on the streets. They know the who, what, when, where, and why in the neighborhood. They know about Mrs. Smith sneezing down the street. When Bo talks about communication, he's right. A lot of communication with the street cop will be a lot to prevent something like this. You know,
the other thing, too, is we talk about 10,000 FBI agents. I say it on every show. We would deputize some of the cops back in the 70s, made U.S. Marshals sworn in. So, in other words, you could use cops from all over the country, tens of thousands of cops being sworn as U.S. Marshals to assist the FBI on certain things like this. If you have people that you think are suspicious or there's a possibility of them being terrorists, then you could put surveillance, you could do. And you know what the problem, too, is going to be? Try to get a wiretap. Try to get a wiretap on that house. You're not getting it anymore because everyone's worried about the Patriot Act is gone.
And cops need to know the government's going to back them. They need to know their leaders are going to back them. That's the point I wanted to ask you, Erick. Right. Listen, it feels like to many people President Obama has put interference in this, you know, and the left, of course, and it makes it so tough to have sort of an honest conversation and honest policing in this. Do you think this could change the tide?
No, I don't think it will, unfortunately. I wish it would, but I mean, look at the immediate reaction. I was getting emails while the shooting was going on in Colorado last week, before facts were known. They were reporting it might be a bank robbery, from leftists saying, oh, it's another Republican, another white Republican. And with this incident, you had a number of prominent left-wing elites saying, oh, probably another Republican. Other news networks were reporting the location of Planned Parenthood in relation to the facility, thinking it was another white guy. It's just very sad that when tragedies like this happen, the conservative reaction is to think it's got to be a madman or an Islamic terrorist, and the left blames their common American political opponent.
Let's look at France, one of the most liberal countries. As soon as those attacks occurred, all bets are off. Warrants were thrown out. Everything is happening. It's going to happen in America when people are going to say, I don't care. Some would say, Bo, then that means we live under permanent martial law, or it's just certain of us should live under permanent martial law.
Look, you got to unleash.
I don't agree with that. Okay. I agree with the fact that we need better intelligence where we can avert these kind of attacks.
Well, you get that through the street cops. You let them do their job and stay out of the way. We're going to come back.